the chicken. Sorry.
Oh yeah, they're out.
Will the chicken run away if we go see it?
This is my daughter.
Hello. Hello. Oh, these are Easter eggs?
Yeah, those are, I mean, there's a whole mix.
Oh, wow, look at them. Oh, and some ducks and a guinea.
Yeah.
And then one has a thing hanging on its feet.
Oh, great.
Oh, we gotta get that off of them.
Well, and then the geese will yell at us soon.
You can't go around with that on your leg. That's a rope. That's so annoying. Come on. Come on. You can't have that. It's wrapped around your foot. Come on. It's okay.
There's no way.
See that? Little chicken spa. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you down. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. See that? There you go, baby. Yeah. Oh, little chickens. So you have a bunch of apples here.
Yeah.
You didn't plant them, or were they here?
No, these were all planted, I'm guessing, sometime in the late 1800s.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and some are better than others. This is.
How do you mark them, Steve? Like, how are you marking them?
Yeah, I like write the name of the location on it.
Oh, I see.
So that
You're like, this is GPS coordinate.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this one says.
Chicken coop. Just enough to remind me.
That's pretty good.
And yeah, I mean, this is still a bit early to look at ripeness.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still, if I go somewhere this time of year, I'll check the ripeness anyway.
We just discovered, like just today, I was taking a walk on the land and we saw an apple tree that we had not even seen there. And I was like, what joy to like, and the apples are sizable now. So I'm assuming it was planted. It's not some kind of like, you know, wacky one that probably went wild or a little bit. It's not like they have like sizable apples.
Yeah,
so.
some wild apples end up huge.
Really?
I mean,
Okay.
the genetic diversity of wild apples
Yeah.
is like enormous.
Yeah.
So they have more genes than humans have. And then each gene has like multiple alleles. So you can take two cultivated apples and breed them together and you'll get crazy offspring. And I do know of some wild apples that are huge, but probably 1 out of 100. Like most wild apples would be pretty small.
So what's your goal for collecting today? Like, do you make
Well, right now I'm
turn this all into
mainly
cider,
scoping
or?
out to see what trees have apples, because in the fall when we're harvesting, it's too busy to like figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we try and figure out where are all the apples that we're gonna forage this time of year so that when it's actually harvest season, we just know where to go. Because there's a bunch of locations, and some years have a ton of apples. Like you got a ton of apples this year.
Yeah. Well, there's none on the spy apple tree over here.
Uh-huh.
That one's trashed. This one usually has apples over here. That one's trashed. But this tree down here has such beautiful, really early, crisp apples. Yeah. I don't know if have you tried these ones? Oh, and the pear tree is loaded.
We haven't harvested this pear
The
before.
second tree, yeah, I know.
Do you use many of these?
Yeah, they're good. They're
Okay,
like,
maybe that's why.
there's a million of these. Oh,
Yeah, no, I made a really great Perry last year, so
Oh, sweet.
maybe
Yeah,
I'll
these pears
use
are
them.
delicious.
Do you know when they're
What
ripe?
do you use them for?
I can them. I make like pear butter.
Yeah.
Or they're kind of like an Asian pear. They're a small, like Italian crispy pear, so they don't like can as well like as a whole pear.
Okay.
It's better as a product, you know.
This is a beautiful
Yeah, they're
tree,
tiny.
though. Look
Yeah.
at it. Wow, it's so old and
Yeah.
gnarled and lichen filled.
Yeah, every other year it fruits.
Yeah, the pears seem to do a little better.
Yeah.
They're a slightly more annual than
How does a
wild apples.
pear cider compare to like a apple cider?
The aromas can be much more delicate, but also really like sophisticated and elegant are like the terms that come to mind. It's harder to make a really good Perry than a really good cider, but when you do, they have the potential to be, I think, higher quality. Yeah. And they also, if you let them go totally dry, you know, if you're letting ciders and Perry go totally dry, the Perry usually has a little sweetness to it because there's sorbitol in them, which is an unfermentable sugar. It's like a sugar alcohol, and so it won't ferment. So it keeps a little bit of residual sweetness to it.
And
Yeah,
we're here in August, but when would you actually start really harvesting?
Actually, there's a tree down there. The one I'm most excited about here is down there, and that one's usually the first tree I harvest, and it's usually in the first week of September.
Okay.
Like
nice.
September 9th-ish.
Yeah.
You know, towards the middle of September.
And does it fruit every year?
No.
No. Okay.
No, it's kind of in a rough spot, like because it's down low, like we're really high up here, and then when you have a low spot, especially when you're up high, it's a frost pocket, and so that tree gets the brunt of
Right.
the
So all the
spring
wind
weather.
comes down and like
Yeah,
hits
cold
it.
air settles down. Like cold air flows like water,
Right.
you know, and so it'll like settle down in there. And moisture as well, like moisture settles down low, and so if it's a wet year, it's more likely to have problems on the leaves with fungi and stuff like that.
Sorry about the guinea. He's
They are loud, right?
Yeah, and this is like the Alaska of New York up here. It's really, we're 10 to 12 degrees colder than town.
Well, you are really out of the way, I have to say.
Yeah, look at the elderberry tree.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
loaded.
Well, I bet the chickens love that.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. I think the duck needs it in water.
Well, I should pay attention. If you're not going to use all those, I really want to pay attention to these
well,
this
and
year.
they're the last thing that it comes ripe here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's like it's,
Pears are tricky.
Mid-October.
Yeah, pears are tricky because apples, like, you can see the ripeness coming. Like, you can check on them 1 week and know when it's going to be ripe.
Yeah.
Pears, like, you're just like, it's not ripe. It's not ripe. It's not ripe.
Well,
and
these
then,
never
oh,
get
shoot, it's
soft.
overripe.
These never get soft. They're always hard. But they're delicious. And they get about this big.
Oh, not that
Oh,
not
cool.
that much
Yeah.
bigger.
Yeah.
Have you ever after ripened them? Like, harvest them and then hold them cold?
They last for a really long time in the basement.
Yeah, because that's why a lot of commercial pears are harvested too, is that they don't come off the tree ripe.
Yeah.
And they'll ripen pretty unevenly, but if you can hold them cold for like a few weeks, then when you pull them out, they'll ripen predictably.
Do they ripen the
So-
same way that if you put like in with a bag of like a ripened apple or a ripened banana
Yeah.
with the ethylene gas?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the seeds produce it too. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
You're gonna love these. They're so crispy.
These
They're
are
almost
these.
ripe.
Yeah, pretty early. That's why we don't. I
Yeah.
think these are usually gone by the time
Yeah.
I'm picking apples here. Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Can I get in on one?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay.
It's a good eating apple, which pretty much means it's not what you want for cider.
We only eat them. They get super
Wow,
mealy.
that's already totally
know.
tasty.
I know. I was out here scouting the other day, and
A little astringency though.
they get a little sweeter.
Yeah.
It's a little early, but I mean, maybe like look how big some of those ones are up in there.
So a good eating apple is not a good cider apple. Why is that?
In general, no. It's the same kind of with table grapes and wine grapes. Same comparison. Have you ever chewed on a wine grape?
I actually haven't. I don't
Oh, you'll have to
think.
check it
Yeah.
out this year. The skin's very, on a wine grape, the skin is really thick. There's seeds, so they're not pleasant to chew on. Table grapes, you pop them in your
Yeah.
mouth and they're super
sweet.
tasty.
Yeah.
So it's the same with apples. You've got apples that are bred for eating, which are super crispy and tasty. They have like a little bit of sugar, a little bit of acid. But cider apples, the flavors like vary drastically from like very bitter and sweet to like super tart. And the crispy texture is not good for a cider apple because it just gets mushy when you grind it up.
Oh.
And what you want is something that has structure. So when you grind it, it's like having a bunch of little sponges that you can squeeze the juice out of. Because really crispy apples, when you grind them up, they turn to mush. So it's harder to get the juice out.
What is it about a crispy apple that turns it to mush? Like what's the chemistry or the...
I think there's just not as much structure. Like I'm guessing it's like the cell walls themselves are, don't have as much probably cellulose or something.
Yeah.
They don't have as much structure to them.
Right.
Like when you bite into a cider apple, it's usually like almost like biting into a sponge.
Oh, okay.
But you
Oh,
can crack it
interesting.
off,
Yeah.
but it's not crispy.
Huh.
And so there are also a lot of cider apples also.
It seems counterintuitive because you think the crispy apple wouldn't get mushy, but the spongy apple would get mushy. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive to me, at least.
Yeah. And there's a few crossover apples that can make, you know, some decent cider if it has enough aroma and pucker to it, like tart. There's an English cider apple called Bramley's Seedling that also, actually it's a pie apple in England, but a lot of people use it for cider because it has a lot of acidity.
So then that pie baking and that cider apple is a good crossover.
Oh, totally.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, totally.
So then Northern Spy is a good pie apple. Would that make a good cider apple? Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because it's more the flavor
Yeah.
that is the important thing and not so much the like crispy, you know, snap.
How did you get into cider making?
I just sort of happened into it. I met someone, I'm a musician, and there was this guy, Peter Hoover, who he passed away when he was 80 a couple years ago. And he was a ethnomusicologist. He recorded a lot of music in Virginia and North Carolina. And I listened
Like
to
mountain,
his
kind of
mountain
mountain,
music.
yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
mountain music.
Yeah.
Yeah, like banjo players, fiddle
Yeah.
players. And his recordings are now in the Library of Congress and I think the University of Indiana. So I knew of him through the music world before I lived in Ithaca. So when I moved to Ithaca, I met Peter Hoover. He started coming to all our gigs. We played at restaurants and wineries like every week. And he had a whole cider making lifestyle. Like he would forage apples and distill them into great stuff. So I just started tagging along with those crews in the fall, started making my own cider, and just sort of snowballed from there. I was working in the wineries. I was like drinking a lot of wine and getting to know winemakers. And so at some point, we started to realize the cider I was making was as good as most of the wine I was drinking and better than most of the cider we could buy.
Right.
We would like buy cider and taste it blind, like put it in paper bags and drink it and just sort of like compare them objectively. And 9 times out of 10, the ciders we bought weren't all that great. And this was back in 2010, 11, 12, when it was much more difficult to find decent ciders.
How do you give consistency to ciders though? Like if you're sourcing off of different trees, like do you blend all the different apples together or do you try to stay with like one, you know?
Yeah, sometimes
Tree.
they get blended. It's just like wine.
Yeah.
So some wines are blends of grapes you've heard of, but some wines have grapes in there that you've never heard of. So it's the same with apples. Some varieties work good by themselves, like the tree that's down there, which I don't think has a crop on it this year because it was hit by, I think, the moths and
Yeah.
Oh, really? Your
And fungi.
gypsum moths are also.
Oh, so
I
bad.
think it's going to be a really bad next year too because we see so many more egg cases
Oh my
this
gosh,
year.
there's so many.
So
yeah,
many.
down
yeah,
the
they've been
Yeah.
coming east, like Ontario County, west of here,
Yeah.
had them 2 years ago, and then again last year, and it's like they're
Yeah, well, it seemed
moving
like
east.
further north, Syracuse had them really bad. So we were like, oh, we weren't that bad.
Yeah.
But then I saw the egg cases on a lot of the oaks, and I'm like, oh, damn it. We're going to have a bad year. So who knows?
Yeah, so that tree, when I first tasted it, I could tell that it had potential to be a good single variety because it had the right balance of tart and astringent. I mean, the chemistry of it has acid, it has tannin, and it had sugar. And those three components, when you recognize them, you can tell it's gonna have structure to it. And so that one works well. But then some apples will lend like tannins to it. They're just bitter, but not enough acid. So you'll blend those with apples that have more acid. Yeah.
So your ciders should actually taste different every year then that you make them.
Yeah, they do. Even if you try and even if you make a single variety cider one year, it will taste different the next year because of the vintage variation.
Do they
the weather's
age like
different.
wine? Like I'm so like a non-drinker of anything alcoholic, so this is so new to me. So can you age it? Like say, oh, this is cider from 1996. Like, does it stay good or does it become vinegar?
Again, I would compare it to wine because that's
Yeah.
what people are familiar with.
Yeah.
Some wines age well, some wines age well, some don't.
Okay.
And some ciders age well and some don't.
Yeah.
And usually the ones that age well are the ones that either have a lot of acid in them, are really tart, or a lot of tannin, which the apples that have tannins are kind of bitter, but the cider, that lends itself more to like astringent and like a really full mouthfeel, like if it's been barrel aged for a long time. So those will age much longer because the tannins actually, I mean, I could go into the chemistry of it, but just, the tannins help them age better.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how many apples do you have on this
Apple
property?
trees?
Yeah, apple trees, do you know? Have you ever done a main count? Has Steve done a count for you?
Oh, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then there's ones that are completely
dappled in.
Yeah, they're just kind of. But have you ever seen when we go down to we can go to the single tree next? But when we go down here, have you ever seen our little tiny apple tree? It's stayed so small, and it is always loaded.
Oh, this one is kind of in the field?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's on the hedgerow.
Uh-huh.
Should we go see
Yeah,
one?
we gotta check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to see the single tree, or do you
Or
want
what do you want to head with?
Whichever one first. What's the best loop?
Does that have apples on it, or is it just the orange leaves?
Might have a couple. I actually haven't checked. I was just down here picking blackcaps.
I think I see some apples. That's what caught my eye with this tree originally was,
Yeah.
see the hue? It's like almost like a orange-pink
Yeah.
color. You could see that from up higher, and it's just a hue that you don't normally see on apples.
I love the structure of these trees too, like the old ones. You don't get that with the young trees
Yeah.
Oh,
or
yeah.
even some of the
Totally.
cultivated varieties,
Yeah.
but like this craggly, like old man tree, it just has so much
Well,
character.
you'll see when you get closer, this what you're looking at
Yeah.
is like the second or third generation of this tree, where at some point the top fell out of the tree and it just sprouted new branches.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
once
yeah,
you see
look
the
at all the
trunk.
apples. See, you get plenty.
Oh yeah, wow, this isn't bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they're tiny,
Yeah.
but yeah.
They're really high
Oh,
up
they
there.
hung on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see it. I was totally defoliated,
Yeah.
and then the
yeah, it
leaves
was
came
bare.
back.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
its second push out of the leaves.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that affects the fruit.
Yeah.
Because it didn't have the leaves like feeding it the whole time.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
surprised that it even has fruit. Well,
I know.
it's probably, I guess, from last year, the sugars and stuff that they had, but geez.
Yeah, a lot of trees I saw like up in the Finger Lakes National Forest where the moths were really bad.
Yeah.
When they defoliated the trees in May, they just dropped, a
Yeah.
few weeks later, all the
Yeah,
fruit dropped.
Yeah, but luckily, gypsy moths only have one time during the season, and most of our trees, like at the beach, leafed out again right
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah, there's some apples here, and they're in surprisingly good shape for how wet this summer's been.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like, it's been a really wet summer, and so
Yeah.
sometimes fungi can really like get on, not just the leaves, but the fruit.
So how do you keep, like, I mean, obviously with these that you're harvesting kind of like quote unquote like more wild, how would you keep your trees looking good as much as possible? Is that even good? Does it make the fruit tastier if this tree is under, quite a bit of stress?
There's a certain amount of stress which it encourages the tree and the fruit to have more flavor, but you can definitely go over the edge.
Yeah.
Like a certain amount of stress, plants actually produce compounds to fight off insects or infection, and often those are tannins or compounds like that, which also are flavor compounds. So a certain amount of stress will increase the flavor, but then obviously, if the leaves are covered in some kind of fungi and they can't photosynthesize,
Right.
you don't get enough sugar
Yep.
to grow the fruit. So there's definitely a tipping point, and that's something that growers totally acknowledge and manage with that in mind. Specifically in the in the wine world, where people have been growing fruit with really paying attention to that for like decades, if not longer. Like over irrigating them, people know decreases the quality, and I've definitely noticed that in apples as well. If it's in an area where people are irrigating trees or from an orchard that's irrigated, it's not going to have the flavor.
So what is it about this one that you like the flavor of?
Let's see if we can find a couple apples. You could probably taste it, because I mean, really, this is only about a month away from ripeness. Could probably get up there.
I think this
Oh yeah,
one,
there's some low ones there. Oh yeah, totally.
or here.
Yeah.
This one's already been eaten by somebody. This one's a little bland on this one, but it's probably not ripe enough.
Yeah, they're not quite ripe because they're a month away. But do you get the real astringent
Yeah, it has a
like
little,
feeling on your lips and in your mouth
yeah.
afterwards.
It also tastes, this one at least, it's almost like a pear in that, you know how the pears have that sclerenchyma in them? Like that grittiness?
Oh yeah, the stone
Yeah.
cells.
This one feels like a combination of that with like the little sponginess as you were mentioning.
So I'm tasting it now, and it's still a month away, so it's
Yeah.
hard to, it's not like jumping out at you, but you can tell there's sugar, like you can feel it on your tongue. The sugar dissolves on your tongue. Starch you can also feel in there, but it's a little more chalky.
Yes, chalky
Eventually-
is a good word
Yeah,
for it.
so that's the starch. And actually, I also have, I can show you how I like check for that. So I'm tasting some sugar, I'm tasting that starch, which shows me it's only gonna get sweeter. But then there's a little bit of acid, like it's not tart, but it's not like totally bland. So it's got sugar, it's got acid. And then that, that astringent, you know, mouthfeel, it's also a little bitter. So because it has all of those and neither of them are like screaming out, they're all sort of in
Overpowering, yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, sort of makes it stand out as an apple that would make a good single variety cider.
That's fascinating. I mean, it just goes to show you that it kind of like when you're looking at an apple, it's not just for like, you're like, oh, this is sweet. It's like a Honey Crisp. People are like, oh, Honey Crisp, love it. You know, like it's sweet. But you have to kind of like approach apples from like all facets because it could be used for so many different things. And that Honey Crisp is not great for that, you know?
So eventually this is gonna probably show starch. This is last year's iodine. Iodine does go bad, so we'll see how it works out. I'll just hang on to it for,
Does it turn like
minutes.
red or something?
yeah, it'll turn kind of blue.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I guess if you get a cut too, it'd be good to just.
yeah, sure, if you're out there, get a scratch. I'll just hang on to it for a few minutes and see what it does.
The chicken's foot, you know, where it had the little cut around.
Yeah.
Spray it there.
This thing's taking off.
I know, yeah.
Wow.
Should we cut it?
Yeah,
Oh, because
How's
it's
it
in
go?
it's in the canopy, huh?
yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of it, but also it makes it more difficult to harvest.
Yeah.
Like it's really nice that you've started mowing around this.
Yeah, totally.
Like when we first we're harvesting this tree, I mean, we
Yeah, it was,
berries and
Oh, it's
shrubs.
been so hard just
and-
to mow this year because it's been
Yeah.
so wet, you know? That's
Yeah.
why everything is so long.
But also you have to
even-
like mow every 5 days.
Oh, yeah, it's like every
See?
3 days.
Ugh.
I know, they're so bad.
And it smells actually gross.
Yeah, I want to come up here with like a lighter and just.
Yeah.
So.
Torch.
Yeah. Yeah. Butane.
Yeah.
I know this is just a drop in the bucket, but I feel compelled to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it not turn blue?
No, the iodine's probably too old.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just carry it around with me and see what happens. Sometimes it'll take a while. Like you can see some reaction happening in there, but
Yeah.
that's more the iodine actually dyeing it, not turning the starch blue. But I mean, the seeds are also an indication. You know, the starch is the best indication, but if seeds have no color to them, you know it's not right. But you can tell that by tasting it.
Now, how do
As well.
like these apples that are for cider compare to like a regular apple? Like when you cut it, oftentimes when it's exposed to air, it goes brown. Do these turn brown less quickly?
Usually more quickly.
More quickly. And
Yeah.
what is it?
That's the tannins
That's the
oxidizing.
tannins oxidizing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so tannic apples will oxidize really quickly. And also the acidity affects it as well. There's some apples have a lot of ascorbic acid in them, which is actually an anti-browning, compound. It'll keep apples from oxidizing. As a caveat, the first, there is finally, I'm not saying finally because I'm happy about it, but the first GMO apple has been released, and sadly the only reason that they modified it was to make it so it didn't turn brown. It's not to make a tree that's disease resistant or drought resistant or can feed people.
I
It's
just remember when, I don't know if it was there was an apple I used to take to my school lunches. Maybe it was Cortland. I don't know. It was one of those ones that started with the C, and they were saying if you cut it, it doesn't brown as quickly. Not saying that it's a bad thing or whatever, but I guess people just view it as oh, that apple's bad. And maybe there's a belief that when you have a brown fruit, you toss it. So that was one of the ones that, because parents would slice their apples for their kids, and by the time lunch comes around, it's brown. but it was like, I think it was the Cortland apple. I'm pretty sure it was like a bright red apple with like a very white flesh.
Yeah.
And that was like its claim to fame.
Yeah, that could be. It probably has a higher level of ascorbic acid in
Yeah,
it.
interesting.
Yeah, so that'll keep the browning from happening as quickly.
Should we go see the other one?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you can see how this, used to have like big branches coming off of it.
Oh no, this is
now it's just,
beautiful.
like,
This is like a
fell
sculpture
apart.
in the
This is, like,
landscape.
Yeah, it's a little second life.
Yeah, look at somebody's little.
Oh yeah, somebody's been eating them. How good is like apple recruitment? Like when you have a bunch of apple trees like Melanie, how good is apple recruitment? You see obviously some things eating them, but do you often see apple seedlings or do they get kind of munched on by deer here?
These days, they really get hammered by the deer, but obviously 100 years ago,
Yeah.
and even 50 years ago, there was a lot less deer pressure because most of the wild apple trees that we find around here are well over 50 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, and they often are along hedgerows where there was a fence, and so it was probably animals that would, eat the apples.
Sit on it, the hedgerow, poop them out. Kind of
Yep.
thing. Yep.
Yep, exactly. Or it would end up falling just outside the fence,
I see.
and so the animals.
Ooh, is that a grouse?
Yeah.
This trail kind of goes along the tree line.
Yeah, it's lush still this time.
Yeah.
It's August.
Oh wait, it might have been. I think it's actually this trail. We gotta go over. The blueberries have been epic.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
look at all those
awesome.
blueberries. Sandra, you might want to hit one of those up.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, whoever the old farmer that used to live up here said that whatever the soil pH is really good for berry growing here.
So it's probably a little on the acidic side.
Yeah. You guys wanna
Oh, those are tasty. Oh my God.
Yeah, those are really
they're
good.
like
And
blueberry.
that one must have been a cultivated one, right?
I don't know what that is. Those have never gotten me right.
This way or that way? Endless decisions.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
I feel like I'm in a Murakami book and I don't know the forking path I should take.
Yeah, our trees are getting so tall.
Shagbark?
Yeah. Look at the way the trees grow.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Pretty.
Oh, yeah. That is just spectacular.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wowee.
There's a lot of nuts this year.
Yeah. it's really
Wowee. That's like our oak tree.
Be a good
Different
year to have
form, but-
pigs.
good. Yeah. Oh, I know. I've always meant to have pigs, but
I know.
infrastructure.
So you've
I know.
cut around it.
No, no. This is
This is it.
it.
Wow.
Yeah. These aspens.
They're so tame. It's
Yeah.
like a force field. It's like, zing,
Yeah.
zing.
It's like a fairy circle.
Yeah. Oh, that is just so marvelous. I
Yeah.
love seeing ancient big trees like this.
Yeah.
Because there's so
my favorite tree
few.
on the property.
Are you gonna? It's a good nut year. Are you gonna be harvesting at all?
Yeah, we probably will.
Yeah.
It wasn't. We didn't get any last year.
This is gonna
It's
be
been
a good
few
year.
years since the hickories had nuts.
Nothing seems dropped yet, or if it dropped, somebody else got them.
Yeah, squirrels are pretty quick on the hickory
Yeah, they
nuts.
are.
So this is that little apple tree.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it's just like the cutest little thing.
Yeah, it's probably because the rootstock gives it that ability. Like,
Yeah.
that's why most trees are grafted, is so the rootstock sort of determines the size of the tree. It'll give it certain like propensities for like fruiting really early and stuff like that, but it probably has a somewhat dwarfing rootstock just naturally.
Oh, this is much more astringent. It still has that chalky kind of vibe too.
Yeah,
We've made cider out of this one before.
yeah.
It was a little too funky like the first year, but the second year it was really good.
Well, yeah, that astringency, the tannins,
Yeah.
is what makes it age well.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
sometimes that means that it's going to be better after
second time
2 or
around.
I
3 years in the
mean,
bottle.
we might have a couple bottles down the basement.
Yeah, wow, this one is going to be worth checking out. I mean, it's still at least a month away, you can tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this one has a lot more acid. It's like real tart,
Yeah.
but also has some astringency. So,
Interesting. So
Yeah.
would any of these make good vinegars, or do ciders make good vinegars, or what makes a good vinegar
I
apple?
made a big thing of apple cider vinegar out of one of these trees.
did you? It's probably, you know, I've been really focused on vinegar, but I would assume that the same properties that make it good for cider would probably make a good vinegar, although I don't, the tannins probably aren't that important.
Right. I
in
wonder
vinegar.
if there's an analog from like the red wine vinegar, for instance, too.
Yeah,
an apple
I'm
cider
sure it
vinegar.
would
Yeah.
be. Like, you know, you can have a red wine vinegar or a white wine vinegar. They're
Yeah.
going to have different properties. So
Yeah.
if you have tannic apples, it'll have more structure. But the most important thing probably for vinegar is having a fair amount of like higher alcohol. You don't want a really low alcohol cider because the alcohol is what turns into the vinegar. So if it's a very diluted cider, it would also be a very diluted
That's
vinegar.
right. Okay. Little gray cat bird screaming.
I
away in
know.
there.
Yeah. No, this one's definitely
That's a keeper.
definitely a keeper.
And then this is the other Old Spy, which usually it's doing better than the other one. It didn't get as trashed by the moth.
And how do you know it's a northern spy? Like, is it just the taste, or is it?
I think it said it on our on our like abstract or something.
Oh, cool.
really?
It had a map.
Yeah, it had a map. But these are the only ones that I know what they are.
Steve, are you tall enough to? Oh, the little leaf branch. There it goes.
Yeah, it's been a few years since these had
Yeah, it
a
has
decent
been.
crop.
Yeah.
The challenge is that there's so many that are high up. Like,
Yeah,
you can't
I
ever
know.
get those.
We have like a double
Yeah.
pull.
Right, it's called a panking pole.
Yeah.
That's what they're called. Like the act of shaking them out is called panking.
This is Beth's preferred pie apple.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would believe that's Spy. It's tart, doesn't have the like tannins, doesn't have that astringency. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes great pies.
What are those in there? Those elderberries?
Arrowwood
no.
viburnum, I think.
Oh, viburnum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we get a lot of choke cherries and pokebush. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a viburnum. You have a lot of it here. I know. I've been noticing it's
Yeah. Yeah, it's
berries.
yeah, I love that blue color.
I think viburnum dentatum, but not sure.
Do you ever use the Seek app? I use the heck out of it.
No,
when
but
I go.
iNaturalist I know is like really popular.
Yeah. The mushroom ear has been so epic.
Yeah, we kind of missed out on that, I think, because a lot of our friends were like going for chanterelles and stuff. But I mean, it was so rainy that
Yeah.
it was kind of hard not to be a good mushroom ear.
Yeah.
Look at the little chicken, man. We're gonna come get you.
Steve's gonna talk about this tree and then do some stuff. Oh my god. Oh, good. Go hang out.
Hello,
with them. They don't
puppies.
bark the whole time. Hey.
This is the final apple.
Yeah, this one's loaded. Did this one get hit by the caterpillars too?
This one feels really
no.
lightweight.
This one?
Oh yeah.
Very airy.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
observation.
Yeah.
And you'll see when you bite into it.
Oh my gosh,
it's
it
not
feels like
as juicy.
styrofoam.
Yeah, this apple is completely worthless to us. And this tree
Oh, wow.
seems to have apples
It also
regardless.
Tastes like styrofoam. No, there's a little sweetness to it.
Right. Yeah, there's pretty much just sugar. Like there's not much acid. It's
Yeah.
not tart, and there's also not a
Yeah.
lot of bitterness.
Yeah, I can't believe how lightweight these are.
Yeah. It's because there's
that.
there's not a lot of juice, but next time you bite into it, in fact, you pay attention to it, bite into it, and you'll notice like what I was talking about when it has like a spongy characteristic.
Yeah, that's definitely spongy.
Yeah, when you bite into this, the juice just comes out of the flesh. It separates very quickly from the flesh, which makes it a good, like,
Look how quickly
a good
it
presser.
browns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, for years I didn't harvest this because it tasted kind of bland. But
Yeah.
now that I've been working with more cider apples, we have one in our orchard. It's called Michelin, which is one of the like most used English cider apples.
Is it 5 stars? Just kidding.
Right. Very subtly. But it's fairly bland, but the juice itself does have some decent qualities to it. Like it has sugar in it, it has some aroma to it. I've never fermented it by itself, but it's like the second most common cider apple in England.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so this at least has properties very similar to that, so I'm curious to have it analyzed and just see if there's any chance
Yeah.
you know, it is
I mean,
something
he was
like that.
from England, and
Yeah.
like,
Maybe this could be a redeeming apple. But I'd imagine a lot of the apples that they planted were for cider. They were probably like Johnny Appleseeds.
Yeah.
Johnny Appleseed.
I mean, we've tried
Folks.
like fresh cider,
Yeah.
apples, applesauce, and it all doesn't have much at all.
Right.
If you want to top work this tree, like we could some spring come in and like cut off some of the trunks
Yeah, well,
and
we-
graft other sticks on there.
Yeah.
And you could turn this into
something
whatever
nice.
variety you
A
want.
Franken apple.
Yeah.
With like multiple apples
either
everywhere.
either that, or I was gonna cut it because my plan is to expand out the house this way and do a wraparound porch and do another tree right down here.
Yeah. That would be a wraparound porch would be much.
So,
But yeah, this does have some nice tannins and
yeah.
and you know, sugar to it. So, and sometimes that's an example of a blender. You know, I wouldn't ever think that this would make a good cider by
Right.
itself.
So it would supplement with the other ones that you have that don't have maybe the qualities that
Right.
you want it to have. Yeah. So would it be considered a filler apple, or is that like a bad term for it?
No, I wouldn't consider it a filler apple because it doesn't really even have enough acid. It would be something to balance something that just has like extremely high acidity.
I see.
To
It's
sort of
like an
bring it
art.
back together.
Yeah,
It's an art.
It really is.
Yeah.
He's really good at it.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I think this is a nice introduction into like what we'd look out for if you want to make cider.
Yeah, it's always fun checking them out.
Yeah.
And I actually brought some cider. If
Oh,
you want,
nice.
If you want to sip on some
Oh,
while.
fantastic.
It's one of the ciders I made from that tree down there. I
Oh.
still have maybe a case left. Do you have any left?
I think we have 2 bottles.
Oh.
Yeah.
This story was brought to you by visitithaca.com, which provides ideas to plan your getaway to the Finger Lakes region, where you can find over 150 waterfalls, over 230 miles of hiking trails just in Tompkins County alone, and vibrant agri-culinary experiences. Now, if you happen to visit South Hill Cider on your next trip, bring your hiking boots because their orchards are adjacent to the Finger Lakes Trail, which passes through Thayer Preserve and Lick Brook Gorge. Not to mention they're smack dab between Buttermilk Falls State Park and Robert H. Treeman State Park, so you'll get your fill of delicious cider and unbelievably gorgeous terrain.